Donald Trump is now responding to the United States Supreme Court order denying special counsel Jack Smith's petition for certiorari on a direct appeal before the D.C. Circuit Court of Appeals makes its ruling. Of course, Donald Trump is completely misstating what the law is, but one of the problems here is that the legacy media buys his narrative. It is completely false, and I want to not just show you here Donald Trump's response to the Supreme Court order. I want to show you how it is consistent with Donald Trump's prior responses to orders that have been issued by appellate courts and circuit courts of appeals on technical procedural grounds, which provide a mere temporary relief for Donald Trump, but ultimately Donald Trump ends up losing, and then all that is covered is the lie, and really not that Donald Trump is continuing to lose over and over again. And I also want to show on this video how Donald Trump can just be baited so easily that anything that happens needs to be shared and he needs to post about it, and how that quality in and of itself is such a disqualifying, pathological quality for any person in a leadership position. So first, let's begin with what Donald Trump is posting in response to the Supreme Court's decision denying special counsel Jack Smith's immediate request for a direct appeal, or what's called a petition for certiorari. I want to explain why Trump is wrong, and then let's go on to another post that Trump's made in the past that shows the consistency of his ignorance. Here Donald Trump writes, "The Supreme Court has unanimously rejected deranged Jack Smith's super speedy lawsuit against me. The sick puppy team of lowlifes and radical left thugs could have brought this case 3 years ago and it would have been long over by now. No, they waited until the middle of my very successful campaign for president. If I were polling poorly like everybody else against me is, including crooked Joe Biden, or for some reason I decided not to run, they never would have even brought this ridiculous and disgraceful lawsuit. It is election interference like never before seen in our country. In a certain way, it is a real insurrection, especially when adding the millions of people from places unknown that the worst president in the history of the United States is allowing to pour into the country, totally unchecked and unvetted." Then he talks about open borders, and he goes on there, even though the MAGA Republicans are refusing to push forward comprehensive immigration reform legislation, but I'll set that aside for another video. But here, Donald Trump acts like he won a lawsuit. First off, it is a criminal case. It is not a lawsuit, and the Supreme Court didn't say that you win. The Supreme Court simply denied special counsel Jack Smith's direct appeal, as special counsel Jack Smith has also went to the D.C. Circuit Court of Appeals. This whole framing right here is that you're a loser. You lost the claim of absolute presidential immunity before the district court judge. Yes, you are a loser. The federal judge, Judge Tanya Chutkan, in the federal criminal case against you for trying to overthrow the results of the 2020 election, said that the text, structure, and history of the United States Constitution says that former presidents should not have absolute presidential immunity from criminal conduct while in office. So special counsel Jack Smith did two things. One, he filed directly with the Supreme Court, which the Supreme Court will only grant under the most extraordinary of circumstances. But special counsel took that direct appeal to the Supreme Court before he heard back from the D.C. Circuit Court of Appeals on whether or not they would give an expedited briefing schedule on Donald Trump's appeal of the denial of absolute presidential immunity. The thing that happened, which is beneficial for special counsel Jack Smith, but perhaps not beneficial in terms of the Supreme Court taking instant action, is that the D.C. Circuit Court of Appeals agreed to take instant action. That's right, the D.C. Circuit Court of Appeals has set oral argument on the issue of absolute presidential immunity January 9th. Briefing is to be completed on January 2nd. Donald Trump's brief was submitted on December 23rd. Special counsel Jack Smith's briefing before the 11th Circuit Court of Appeals is due December 30th. So there's expedited briefing there. The reason why the Supreme Court did what the Supreme Court did for now and didn't need to hear a direct appeal, in other words, the elevator didn't go directly to the penthouse or the Supreme Court, it stopped at the normal floors it is supposed to, it's because the D.C. Circuit Court of Appeals has agreed to hear this on an expedited basis. So why would the Supreme Court say, we're getting involved now, let the D.C. Circuit Court of Appeals rule, and then ultimately the Supreme Court can decide whether or not it wants to hear this case. So it's really just a procedural thing by the Supreme Court, not that Jack Smith's super speedy lawsuit got rejected. And that's the thing when the legacy media doesn't report accurately what happened. And as I said, when this Supreme Court ruling came down, I said, I kind of expected that after the D.C. Circuit Court of Appeals expedited the process there. So why would there be a need to expedite in the Supreme Court? I could tell you why I think there's a need to, but that would be the Supreme Court's logic. Let's wait until January 9th or January 15th. Let's see what happens. Then we can get involved once we have a bigger record right there. But here's my other point too. You are celebrating delaying this case going before a Supreme Court that's comprised of 6 right-wing justices and 3 justices appointed by Democratic administrations, where you, Donald Trump, appointed 3 of the right-wing justices, and at least 2 of the other 3 are even more far right-wing, and they've proven themselves to be than the ones that you appointed. So you have a team that should allow you, if you believe that you have the better argument here, why wouldn't you want the Supreme Court to hear this case? You and your lawyers from day one said that you want to bring this to the Supreme Court because you think you're going to be vindicated. So now you are celebrating not vindicating yourself. You're celebrating delaying vindicating yourself before the Supreme Court when you could bring this to the Supreme Court and prove to everybody why you think you have absolute presidential immunity. To me, that just reflects and shows what a loser you are, and it shows the confidence that Special Counsel Jack Smith says, I don't care that Trump appointed 3 of these justices and there are 3 other right-wing justices, and it's a 6-3 right-wing court of a total of 9 justices at the Supreme Court. I'm going to win this. And you say, and Trump goes, no, delay. But do you remember, this is Trump's playbook. Take a look at this. Remember when the appellate division in New York granted a temporary stay of Judge Engoron's gag order against Donald Trump for Trump's threats of Judge Engoron's principal law clerk? And then Donald Trump, just like he did with this Supreme Court procedural move not to hear Special Counsel Jack Smith's petition for certiorari now, Donald Trump celebrated that like that was some big win. And by the way, the media reported about it like Trump won. But you know from watching the MeidasTouch network that we said, no, don't worry. The appellate division is just making a procedural move right here. This is not something to worry about, is what we said, and we were proven to be correct. Here's what Trump posted in the New York Attorney General civil fraud case. He goes, Judge Arthur Engoron has just been overturned, stayed by the New York State Appellate Division Appeals Court for the 4th time on the same case. His ridiculous and unconstitutional gag order not allowing me to defend myself against him, and his politically biased, out-of-control, Trump-hating clerk who is sinking him and his court to new levels of low is a disgrace. They are defending the worst and least respected attorney general, and it's just a bunch of whining. But there, all the appellate division did was temporarily state, no, we need to have full briefing on the issue, and then Trump lost. And then Trump lost the issue. The gag order does not prevent Donald Trump from doing anything other than attacking the judge's principal law clerk. So Trump attacks the judge's wife and the judge's son, which was not actually under this gag order. So everything that Donald Trump says is false. It is a lie. And you then have to wonder, well, people, do they just lie like this? Like there must be some truth. No, he just lies about everything. And then the legacy media just doesn't push back on it. That's why the legacy media is fading. And that's why the MeidasTouch network is growing. But this also goes to like a broader point though. When you think about it, everything Donald Trump does is also very reactive. And he's always proven to be a fool because what he says, oh, the Supreme Court, I won in the Supreme Court, yay. No, you didn't. That's not what the Supreme Court said. You're going to have DC Circuit Court of Appeals. You're about to lose before the Circuit Court of Appeals. And then you've already said now that this should go before the Supreme Court. So then, if anything, the case could go before the Supreme Court soon in this term. But you're going to lose this. It's just, when are you going to lose this is the question. Same thing with the New York Attorney General civil fraud case. You said, I won. The Court of Appeals, the appellate division, overturned Judge and Gore. No, they didn't. You're just lying over and over again. But just think about that in just other contexts. Like here, Adam Kinzinger, former Republican congressman, knew how easy it was to bait Donald Trump. So what has Kinzinger said? Kinzinger just randomly posts to mock Donald Trump. He goes, I'm genuinely surprised how people close to Trump haven't talked about the odor. It's truly something to behold. Wear a mask if you can. Kinzinger saying that Donald Trump smells. And then Donald Trump's team responds to that. Like, they have to respond to everything. He's so easily baited, and this is what authoritarians abroad know. All you have to do is call him sir, or your excellency, or whatever you call him if you're an authoritarian, and he just does whatever you want him to do. And if you want to get him to react, it's the easiest thing to poke this person. So then Trump responds to Kinzinger, calling him smelly, and he goes, this is what Trump's response was. Through his spokesperson, Adam Kinzinger farted on live TV and is an unemployed fraud. He has disgraced the country and disrespects everyone around him. And then what goes viral? Hashtag Trump smells becomes the #1 trend in all of the U.S. We covered it here on the MeidasTouch Network, how Trump smells becomes the top trend in U.S. as claims of his putrid odor go viral. And it's so easy to bait him because all he does is spend his time on social media reacting to things all day. And I won't go through and show you all of the recent posts, for example, by President Biden, but they're just very normal. Could you imagine if President Biden responded to all of the trash that these MAGA Republicans, the lies, the defamation that they throw at him every single day? If he put in all caps, Fox News is saying this, deranged Donald. No, because President Biden's a leader and he's acting normally and he's behaving like an adult. As a bare threshold, as a floor, we should want people who behave like adults to hold the highest office of our land. And here's what President Biden's posting. He's posting, when I came to office, most Americans assumed that bipartisanship was impossible. I never believed it. This year, we've made real progress together. And he talks about, even despite all of the MAGA Republicans attacking and defaming him, he has a message of bipartisanship going into the holidays. We confronted the mental health crisis, President Biden writes, head on, launching 988, the suicide and crisis hotline, funding an additional 14,000 school-based mental health professionals, and proposing a new rule to improve mental health coverage. President Biden writes, we worked with Congress to secure funding for the Advanced Research Projects Agency for Health to change how we confront cancer and diseases. And this year it launched its first program funding innovative treatment, a milestone in our fight to end cancer as we know it. President Biden talks about, we took action to address important issues facing veterans, including toxic exposure and mental health. We expanded health services for women veterans, strengthened veteran home care programs, and supported military-connected family through Jill's Joining Forces initiatives. We passed laws making it easier for health providers to prescribe effective treatments for opioid addiction. And for the first time, the important drug became available for over-the-counter at grocery stores and pharmacies across the country. This year is proof that there is much more that unites us than divides us, but there is much more to do. Here's to delivering more progress in 2024. Look, President Biden could have posted how the MAGA Republicans gave each other fist bumps and high fives as they were trying to deprive our brave veterans of health care for toxic burn pit exposure. He could have done that, but he's acting like a leader. He's acting with dignity and with normalcy. And that's what I want to see. Here's what he's posting. Jill and I had the honor of spending the afternoon at the Children's Hospital reading with some of the strongest kids and parents there are. Our hearts are with them this Christmas. Last holiday season, hundreds of travelers were stranded for days, some spending Christmas at an airport. It's unacceptable. This year, 9 major airlines heeded our call and will guarantee free rebooking meals and hotels if they're at fault for travel interruption. And there you have President Biden acting like a leader, being someone you could look up to, a role model right here. Him, and Dr. Jill Biden. This is important stuff. That's why I wanted to show you the comparison as well and get how easy it is to bait Trump. Anyway, I'm Ben Meiselas. This is the MeidasTouch Network. Hit subscribe. We're on our way to 2 million subscribers. Thanks to your support. Have a great one.
Thanks so much for watching. We're only a few subscribers short of 2 million subs. Please subscribe right now to the MeidasTouch YouTube channel for free and help us grow this unapologetically pro-democracy network.